Okay, so before we begin our Happy Mealtime presentation, I would like to introduce our presenters. Lauren Baxter is an occupational therapist serving individuals ages 3 and up. Lauren has been working for the Cuyahoga County Board of DD for 8 years and recently accepted the adult OTPT, Occupational Therapy and Physical Therapy supervisor position within the board. Our other presenter for the Happy Mealtime section is Jacqueline Berg. Jacqueline is an early intervention speech language pathologist, and she's been with the board for 5 years, and she has a special interest in feeding and making sure children have what they need. So without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen so that Lauren and Jacqueline can share theirs.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're very welcome.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about Happy Mealtimes. Thanks again, Stephanie, for the introduction. And before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Cuyahoga DD and the services that we provide. So we provide support and services for people with developmental disabilities, and our services are based on the needs and goals of each person. We call this person-centered planning. So our efforts are uniquely tailored to that specific individual. And we provide support and services in the home, school, places of employment, and in the community to help people live a more meaningful life. This slide just shows a little bit about the people we support. So we provide services to individuals from birth all the way up to ages 60 and older. Approximately 63% of the individuals we serve are males and 37% females. So we do serve a wide range of individuals through Cuyahoga County. And this slide shows a table of our overview of DD services for each age group. So again, from the early childhood, birth to 2 years old, school age individuals, ages 14 to 22 are transition individuals, and then all the way to 22 and up for our adults. And if you or anyone you know is interested in getting involved with our services through Cuyahoga County Board of DD, you can call our intake line, which is 216-736-2673. And I also encourage you to visit our website at cuyahoga.bdd.org. And our contact information is also on the website, just to see again more in depth on the services we provide. And then lastly, this shows that we're very involved in our community. So Cuyahoga County Board of DD continues to be a vital part of the county's health and human services. We share our expertise with a wide range of community partners and assure safety net services for those with the greatest needs. We facilitate collaborative initiatives, provide high quality support administration, and fund a wide variety of services. So now I'll get into our presentation on Happy Mealtimes. And our goal is just to provide strategies and information on how to make mealtimes just a more enjoyable experience. So first, I'll talk about mealtime seating and positioning, and how and where a child is sitting to eat can have a big impact on the success of a meal. We want adequate positioning during mealtimes. That can be very important to help with supporting our breathing, providing support and security when sitting. So this allows us to focus on our eating rather than focusing on our posture and support and positioning when eating. So we want to focus on the meal. It allows for better hand-to-mouth coordination, or what we call fine motor skills. So the ability to use utensils to eat meals or use our fingers for finger foods. So positioning allows for that hand-to-mouth coordination, as well as it gives us more jaw control and enables a child to chew better. So that's just some some key points on the importance of good positioning during mealtime. These pictures display ideal mealtime positioning. So the best seating position for mealtimes is having the hips, knees, and ankles at a 90-degree angle. So you could see on the picture on the left, the boy, he's sitting in a booster chair looks like a standard dining room table, and his feet are supported by a kid's chair. And you can see that his hips at a 90-degree angle, his knees are at that 90-degree angle, and as well as his ankles. So he's got good foot support and good positioning at the table. And then the child on the right, she's in a high chair with a foot plate. It's called a trip trap high chair. And again, you could see that 90, 90, 90 positioning, 90 degrees at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and her feet are supported. So this is just an ideal mealtime positioning for kids. And some seating considerations, keep in mind the foot support. So the feet should be resting flat on the floor or on a footrest. So you can use a stool, old phone books, a milk crate, or a heavy box to give that foot support if the child's feet don't touch the ground at the table. The knees should be resting comfortably over the edge of the chair. If the chair is too big, you can try bringing the child forward by placing a cushion behind his or her back. The hips should be comfortably placed at the back of the chair, as the picture shows. If the child's slouching or has poor postural control, a wedge cushion could be helpful to help him or her sit upright. So we want that good hips and pelvis to be stable to provide good trunk support and symmetry. Shoulders should be relaxed and the elbows should be at the same height as the table. If the table's too tall, try building the seat up by using a booster seat or cushions so the child can be closer to the table and have their elbows at the same height as the table. And then finally, the head should be aligned over the spine, and this promotes good head control for safe chewing and swallowing. So in this diagram, you just see all the way from the feet up, having stable feet allows for stable hips and good trunk control, head control, and then that good jaw control for safe feeding and swallowing. So I'll turn it over to Jacqueline, who's going to talk about mealtime expectations.
All right. So I think the most important thing to really start when you're talking about mealtime expectations is to establish a division of responsibility with you and your child. Your child will not eat the same amount of food at every snack and meal, and that is normal, and we do too. I think that a lot of times we are so worried about how much food that is going into their bodies that we forget that at the end of the day, when they've been to XYZ or playing all day, that they just might be over it and not ready for dinner or not wanting to eat dinner, and that they might not eat as much as we would normally expect them to, and that's okay too. I think the best way to describe it is, as the parent, putting the expectation on yourself that you're going to provide what you're having, when you're going to have it, and where you're going to have it. And it's really your child's decision as to how much is going to be eaten and whether or not it's going to be eaten. And that giving yourself a little bit of taking that stress off of you it's not a reflection upon you how much your child is eating at what meal and when. And then I think I just said this, so that's not a reflection of you. So don't give up. Exposure, exposure, exposure. The more you expose your child to certain different foods and types of foods, the more they're likely going to eat it. Some kids need one exposure to a food to try it. And some of the literature even says up to 50 times that they need an exposure to a food to actually eat the food and be willing to eat the food. And then there's other times where they just might not like that food, and that's okay. You don't like every food either. So I think that knowing that even though it seems like a waste to put that food on the table because they're not going to eat it, they might not eat it this time, but they might eat it next time or the 5th time or the 10th time that you present that food, because it's no longer scary because they've seen it many times presented to them. I think one of the things that I have a difficult time with as well is embracing that things are going to get messy, and that's okay. And exploration is a part of learning. But it's also okay to have boundaries for that mess. It might be okay to get your hands and your face dirty, but it may not be okay to throw the food on the floor. And that's totally acceptable too, to have those boundaries. Understanding your child's developmental stage is going to be really important for you to be able to put yourself in their shoes and know how to parent accordingly. I think that people get caught up in that, well, that's not what I do. But if you really think of what a 3-year-old should be doing at this time, or a 4-year-old should be doing at this time at mealtime, you kind of start understanding a little bit more, and you don't get as frustrated. The new kind of research shows that your child's attention should be their age plus 2 to 3 minutes. So if you're looking at a 4-year-old, really their attention span might only be 6 minutes, and that's completely appropriate for their age. Some kids, if they're really into it, might be there for the duration, sit for 30 minutes, but it kind of makes sense when you think about that, why your child might not be sitting for your 45-minute dinner meal. Also, new things are scary for little kids, and it's natural to have fear of different things, especially the unknown. And food, quite frankly, is a lot of unknown. It can be, if you think of a blueberry, sometimes a blueberry is sweet, sometimes a blueberry is tart, sometimes a blueberry is small, sometimes it's almost the size of a cherry. So you're not always getting the same thing every time you eat it, and that can be scary for a kid too, and that's normal. However, that being said, it shouldn't be a roadblock for moving forward. We should always be making progress at meal times. Another kind of like tip and helpful idea for navigating mealtime is that waiting and pausing can be really magical for a parent. You can be the guide, but you can also patiently observe and help them find their way by doing that. I think that sometimes praise, you want to praise, but sometimes not saying anything speaks more volumes than praising and telling them how great they are that they ate their chicken. And then the last idea for navigating meal times is really understanding what comes next in your child's development, anticipating some of those things. So if they're doing some soft solid foods, anticipating that those harder solids will come next, and that is appropriate for their development, so that you can kind of start introducing those as they come. Or maybe you were making fork tender vegetables for their chewing skills, but now they might be coming up to being able to do more chewing and not needing that, highly steamed food. Another idea is that just to remember that kids really thrive on consistency and boundaries, and they respond to that gentle guidance of those boundaries. So if they know what to expect at every single meal time, it makes the guessing work takes the guessing work out of the meal, and the food can be more of the focus. It's also really important. I think this is the most important bullet point here, is that you're the model, and how you interact with food is going to show them how to interact with food. Also, eating with your child as much as you can also be a great model as to how they're supposed to be eating too. So even though it's hard not to be doing other things while they're eating, because you have a laundry list of things to do, sitting down for that 5 to 10 minutes and eating with them can do a lot for how they interact with their food too, and showing them how to interact with food. I'm not a dietitian, but I think that this is one of the common concern for parents, is the amount of food that kids are eating. So I did include it because I think that this is important. This is a great resource. This myplate.gov is a great resource for daily serving sizes based on their age. You can actually go to the website and you can put in your child's age, their activity level, even their height and weight, as much information as you want. And then it will give you, and their, yeah, I said activity level, but it will give you their, it will give you about how much calories that they're supposed to have and what that can look like on their plate. And I think that, you know, so an 8-year-old that is moderately active needs 1,600 calories a day. And it can kind of guide you as to how much they're getting, or if there's not meeting kind of that criteria of how much, then you know when to kind of refer to someone else and get some help. Another rule of thumb is 1 tablespoon of each food per age is where you should start for your meal. So if you have a 4-year-old, putting 4 tablespoons of each food on their plate first, and then they can always ask for more. That's a nice way to guide how much a serving size is and not to overwhelm them when they're looking at the food on their plate. That also means, though, that they can have extra blueberries and ask for more servings of blueberries, and that's okay too. I included this slide just to kind of show what a serving size is for ages 1 to 3. Just as kind of a reference page for the people that get this presentation afterwards. It kind of goes over how much your meat or fish or cheese or vegetables that you actually are expected to eat. You know, a serving isn't a whole banana, it's a half a banana and things like that. Another concern that a lot of parents bring up to me is the amount of protein that children are supposed to eat. So I did include the minimum for protein, about how much protein a 1 to 3-year-old should have, and then a 4 to 9-year-old should have. So 13 grams of protein for a 1 to 3-year-old and 19 grams for a 4 to 9-year-old. And then I just listed some examples of what that actually is, because I think that it is actually shocking how little kids need to eat in order to meet their protein requirements. 1 ounce of chicken is 7 grams of protein. So if you had a whole cup of milk in that day and an ounce of chicken, a 1 to 3-year-old would actually meet their protein requirement. On the next slide, I have kind of a visualization of that. And I kind of included one that did include meat, because I know that a lot of kids don't love chicken, and this is kind of the age of a little bit of pickiness. So if they're not eating meat, they can meet their protein requirement by having 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, a cup of milk, and a piece of whole grain bread in a day. And then if you're looking to meet the 4 to 9-year-old requirement, the only thing that you have to add is a Easy Mac macaroni or an egg, and they would meet their daily requirement for protein as well. So this is just kind of a guide to show you that although that is protein is a big concern for a lot of parents, that your child probably is meeting their protein needs. And then again, if they're not, then it's a good time to look into seeing a dietitian to have them really start meeting their needs. You'll have this just was a slide to remind me to tell you that in when you receive this presentation after the fact, will be also a handout for power packed foods, so that if you do need to include a few more items or a few more calories, that will give you some ideas as to how to do that.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. I'm going to talk about some strategies on keeping a child seated for meals. So first, you want to be on a schedule. Try to space meals 2.5 to 3 hours apart, and limit snacking in between meals. So this is important because it sets a child's appetite up to be cyclical and not random. You also want to be prepared. So have the meal set up and ready to go when the child comes to the table to eat. So that will limit the amount of wait time or the likelihood of the child getting up and leaving the table before the meal's even set down on the table. And keep meals between 10 to 30 minutes long. Going past 30 minutes often makes a child wiggly in their chairs and ready to get up and move on to a different activity or task. So I think 10 to 30 minutes I would keep the meals at. Pictured as a visual timer, this might be helpful to use during mealtime to show a child how much time they have left to stay seated for the meal. So the red will slowly disappear as the time clocks down. So that's that visual component, since time is just very hard for a lot of kids to tell, and many kids don't understand the concept of time. So a visual timer is a good tool to use. It also will beep once you reach 0 too. So it has that auditory component as well. Another tip is to limit distractions, both within the environment around mealtime and at the table. So turn off the TV, maybe put the phones away, limit use of a tablet or playing with toys at the table. So if your child does become stressed or anxious without a specific toy or tablet during mealtime, just try to increase the number of minutes without that distraction. So again, that visual timer can be a helpful strategy, as well as first then language, which I will talk more about in the upcoming slides. You also want to be consistent and persistent. So making changes to your mealtime routine can be challenging, but keep with it, be very consistent and persistent. And that's when you'll see a quicker success with meal times with your children. Offering sensory activities before a mealtime can also help a child sit and attend to the meal. So sensory activities help organize and calm the brain so a child can focus on eating. And I recommend just experimenting with both active and calming sensory activities. So active ones would be like jumping on a trampoline, doing jumping jacks, rolling or bouncing on a therapy ball, rotational spinning, which is spinning in a circle, or those are kind of more active sensory activities, versus calming would be like deep pressure massages, listening to calming music, participating in deep breathing, or more linear, like back and forth or side to side swinging is calming. So see what makes your child focus and attend to mealtime, whether it be active or calming sensory activities before mealtime. Another good activity, they're called heavy work activities. And these are any activities that involve pushing, pulling, lifting, or carrying heavy objects. So a lot of chore-based activities like sweeping, mopping, wiping down tables, maybe carrying a heavy laundry basket to the washing machine, putting dishes away. Those are all heavy work activities. Some play-based ones could be rolling and pulling Play-Doh, participating in obstacle courses, or playing catch with a large ball. So again, those might be helpful to complete before mealtime. And then the last tip is to give sensory input during the meal. So if giving sensory activities or participating in sensory activities before a meal still doesn't work and your child's wanting to get up and cannot focus on the meal, maybe giving sensory input during the meal would be helpful. So these are just 3 items that will give sensory input during the meal. The first is the Sensi's vibrating pillow, and that's pictured all the way to the left. And it's just a pillow that vibrates when you sit on it, and when you stand up, the vibration stops. So vibration can be a very calming form of sensory input. The second picture in the middle is a weighted lap pad. It just has weights in it, and that can just be placed over a child's lap to give them that deep pressure calming input. And then the third picture to the right is a wobble cushion. It's just an inflatable cushion with texture on one side, and it gives that good movement vestibular input that a child might need to sit still and attend to a meal. And then this is just a picture of a first then card or first then visual support. So this might be helpful if the child views mealtime as a non-preferred activity. So this is something you can show a kid that first we're going to eat lunch, and then you get to do a preferred activity immediately following the mealtime. So in this case, they get to go on the playground. So this is an easy visual tool. You can have the visual support or just use the language. First, we're going to eat lunch, then you get to play on the playground. And that's what will sometimes motivate a kid to finish their meal so they can engage in that preferred activity. So picky eating, I wanted to show a quick video. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pull the video up. And it's on tips, 7 tips for picky toddlers to get them to eat. Okay, let me bring that up real quick.
Always picky eaters, and some kids are great eaters, and some kids go through phases. It's a common and actually very, typical, predictable phase that kids go through. And really it's because it's one of the only ways that kids have to exert any control over their environment. It can actually take between 15 and 18 times of introducing a new food for a kid to even try it, let alone like it. So persistence is key. And a lot of parents feel like feeding their kids is a really thankless job, but it's so important because you're really helping them to develop their palate, and introducing those healthy foods early is really vital for getting them on track to be a healthy eater. I think that sometimes parents start a fight because they give a ridiculous portion for a toddler, and then they feel that the food will go to waste. So it becomes like this contentious subject. A little kid's serving compared to an adult serving is about a quarter of the size. So instead of a whole slice of bread, a quarter of a slice of bread. Instead of 4 ounces of meat, just 1 ounce of meat, 2 tablespoons of vegetables, 2 tablespoons of fruit. You don't want to overwhelm your child by putting these big grown-up servings on their plate and then somehow expecting them to actually eat it.
One of the mistakes parents make is that they're so concerned that their toddler's not eating enough that they're giving them snacks throughout the day, which in turn then makes them not hungry and eat the meals that they're supposed to be eating.
I am not a fan of hiding healthy foods in other dishes. I really think it's important that kids know what fruits and vegetables look like and that they learn to have an appreciation for them on their own. So there's certainly nothing wrong if you wanted to, make brownies with avocados to make them heart healthier, but don't think that that is the way to get your kids to eat vegetables. If you want your kids to eat healthy, you have to eat healthy yourself. You cannot expect them to love their broccoli and peas if you don't eat them as well.
One of the best things you can do for your toddler is to sit there and eat with them. They can see you eating the foods that you want them to try and really making it a time where you can engage and talk together.
Not every meal has to be perfect. We definitely have all had those nights where it's the frozen pizza and we were in a rush and that's all we had. But you do want to be able to look back at a week and kind of reflect on it on the whole and say, yeah, we got veggies in there, we got fruit in there, we got, some low-fat dairy and protein and whole grains. So don't stress over every meal and every snack, but do try to be offering a wide variety of healthy food to your kids.
All right, I'll bring my PowerPoint back up. That was just some easy 7 tips. Oops, sorry, it didn't start where I wanted it to. Sorry, let me go back to the slide. Nope. Sorry, it doesn't come up when I select it. There we go. So I'm going to go into more slides on picky eating. And one thing that can contribute to picky eating is sensory processing issues. So a lot of kids with developmental disabilities have issues with sensory processing. They may have what's called a sensory processing disorder, and that can contribute to picky eating. So first, a child who is oversensitive to sensations in the mouth, or they have oral defensiveness, they may gag on solid food and avoid strongly flavored food items. There's some kids that may be oversensitive to smells, and as a result, they often seek out bland food. So they don't like any food that has strong flavors or smells to them. Some kids may be sensory seeking and they don't like bland or soft food. They prefer that crunchy, textured, high flavored foods. So they may like carrot sticks and pretzels, and any spicy, sour, or sweet flavored food. Also, kids might have a sensory-based motor disorder, which results in them struggling with coordination skills that are needed to use utensils. So they might need what we call adaptive feeding equipment to help them with meal times. And I'll go into that in a couple of slides as well. And then lastly, some kids have poor oral motor coordination or that low muscle tone, and that may result in them struggling with chewing and swallowing. So they prefer foods that don't need to be chewed or those softer foods that don't require a lot of chewing as a result. So just keep in mind that sensory processing issues can contribute to picky eating. And then some strategies for picky eating. You want to eat dinner as a family. So eating together, again, that modeling, children might model their to try new foods. Don't allow your child to graze all day. So that was in the video, so that snacking might make them not hungry when the mealtime comes around. Only introduce one new food at a time in smaller portions. And introducing that new food at the beginning of the meal when the child's hungry might make them more likely to try new foods. Also, giving a child choices, giving them control when it comes to meal times and new foods, like saying, do you want 3 or 5 green beans to try? That sense of control might make them comply more with trying new foods. And then don't require a clean plate. Don't expect a child to eat all the food on their plate or all of that new item. If they just touch it, smell it, or take even one bite, that's making progress with trying a new food item. Some additional strategies for picky eating is lead by example. You're the most important role model for a child in trying healthy new foods. Stocking up on healthy choices. So make sure you have foods that are fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairy products. Make those accessible in the house where your kid has access to these throughout the day. And limit junk food in your home. That can help too on making a kid more likely to eat those healthy new foods. Don't force it. So forcing your child to eat certain foods will only cause stress for both you and the child. So let them try the new foods, maybe play with the new food, but don't force them to eat it if they're not quite ready yet. And get creative with food. You can add fruits and vegetables to fruits to cereal, make smoothies out of vegetables and fruits, allow your kid to make their own pizza. So just make healthy food fun and get the kids involved in kind of creating those healthier foods and new foods to get them to try them. And then letting them help with the meals and snacks. Like I said, they can maybe create the grocery list, pick out the food items in the store, and then help mix, measure, bake, and cook the food. And this is just a healthy eating chart. This can also encourage healthy eating habits using that behavior chart. So this is one where the little circles are just portion sizes for each type of food. And they get a point for every box that's completed, plus a bonus point for trying a new food for that day. So you can kind of determine the amount of points per week in order for them to get a reward. So this is just another tool. It's part of your packet with a presentation that might be helpful to get kids motivated to eat healthy, eat all the foods listed, a variety of foods, as well as trying new foods. So just a way to motivate kids, another tool. And then some strategies to increase tolerance for new foods. Like we mentioned, allow for touching or playing with non-preferred food items so the kid can explore it. You might want to discuss food properties, different varieties, preparation and preferences with the kid to get them engaged with the food. Try variations of food like cooked versus raw carrots. Another strategy would be changing the temperature of food. So trying grapes that are frozen cold or at room temperature, see if the temperature of the food makes a child which temperature they prefer. And then try different dips or sauces that the child likes, like fat-free ranch or hummus, just some dips that might make them enjoy the food better and something that they prefer. And then at your local library or on YouTube, there's plenty of books and videos out there about trying new foods. So this is another way that you can engage the child and read them different books or have them watch different videos about new foods that might motivate them as well. And then the next slide, I'm just going to go over some different plates and equipment that's out there that you can use during mealtime. So there's a lot of fun plates for picky eaters. This one's the spin meal plate, and it encourages picky eaters to try new foods. So the kid can spin the arrow, and whichever compartment it lands on, that's the food they can try. So it just makes mealtime fun and allows a kid to try new foods in each compartment. So this can be found on Amazon. It's about $20. So I thought that was kind of a fun way to make mealtimes enjoyable for kids. And then another plate, it's called the top right one is a dinner winner tray. And it's just a board game style tray for kids that they start at the bottom and they have to make their way up on the board to get to the finish line, which there's a little compartment for a special dessert or treat to encourage kids, again, to eat their meal or try new foods, whichever way you want to use it. And there's different themes. There was like a dinosaur themed one, outer space, superheroes. So they have come in fun designs. And that was on Amazon for approximately $18. There's also the constructive eating plate and utensil set. Again, a fun way to make mealtime fun, and it has spots on the plates where your fork should go and your spoon should go. So it helps teach how to scoop food, how to pierce food. So again, a way to learn fine motor skills for eating as well. There's also adaptive feeding equipment options out there. So divided plates could help with both portion control, and some kids don't like their food touching each other. So it separates food for those picky eaters. So those can be found online, as well as built-up handled utensils. And these are often recommended for kids that have limited grip strength, and it gives just a bigger surface to give them more control over the utensil when eating. There's also angled utensils. So some kids might have limited range of motion in their wrists where they struggle with hand to mouth feeding. So these utensils are already angled to help with them feeding themselves easier if they do have that limited range of motion in their wrists. So there's a lot of variety out there, from kid utensils all the way to adult utensils that are already angled if they have limited range of motion. And then pictured on the right are weighted utensils. So that black handle is weighted, and it helps stabilize the hand and arm movements for any individual who has tremors or spasticity. That weight will help reduce those tremors to allow them easier way to eat without spilling as much food. So those, again, they have a variety of weighted utensils out there to purchase. And then lastly, there's suction plates, bowls, and mats. So the top pictures, that's the Happy Mat by Easy Peasy. And it's a suction mat that has compartments for different food items. Again, these are just minimized messes during mealtime. So if your kid's more prone to tip over the bowls or plates, suction plates and bowls might be the way to go to keep the plate secure on the surface or the table so you don't get spills and messes. And also some kids, it helps to stabilize the bowl when they're scooping food. So the bottom pitcher is just, that's a suction cup on each bottom of the plate bowl, and there's a divided plate as well.
So I wanted to just end with a little, or start to end with a little bit of information on gagging versus choking. I think this is important because when we are introducing new foods, a lot of things can happen, and a lot of kids can have a lot of different reactions to foods. And it's important to kind of keep a neutral face when you're doing those kind of things. So my face for when when a child tries a new food in therapy is this. And my face when they don't try new food is this. And my face when they're gagging usually is this. Because you don't really want to give a big reaction to things if you don't have to. So it's important to know that gagging is not choking. Gagging is your body's way of saying, I'm not ready for that yet. It could be for a sensory reason or a texture reason, or the food may not be chewed enough, or they may have a really hypersensitive gag, and that gag could happen at the tip of their tongue, at the side of food, all of those things. So it's really important to stay calm and positive and just encourage chewing or spitting out if necessary. Choking is silent. A child would turn blue, be distressed, maybe grab their throat, and intervention would be needed. So that is the time to, intervene and make sure that your child is safe. But choking is definitely and always silent because, something would be stuck in their airway. My biggest recommendation is to just educate yourself and have a common list of choking hazards handy, and also staying up to date on choking intervention. There's a bunch I included a YouTube video, but there's a bunch of different YouTube videos. I actually had our whole team of speech therapists review a choking video just at our last meeting, because it is really important to keep up to date and be confident that if that were to happen, that you would know what to do. I included a list of kind of when to see a feeding therapist bullet points. I'm not going to read all of these to you because you can read, but if you're seeing that you're not, you're introducing a lot of foods and there's constant refusal, really sensitive gagging, fussy and irritable when they're eating, coughing when they're eating, just a big list of when to see a feeding therapist, because we gave a lot of great recommendations today. But if you're really still struggling as a parent, a feeding therapist can do a lot for your child. I think the list just goes on at the second page, and maybe even a third. And then if you are ready to see a feeding therapist and have an evaluation, I think it's important to come ready with a list of foods that your child eats and doesn't eat, because that's going to be one of the biggest things that a therapist will ask at an evaluation. And so I included a 3-day meal diary and linked that so that you would have that available if that was needed. I think if you come with that, then I think you're going to get a lot more out of a feeding evaluation versus not coming. And one of the suggestions probably will be to go home and do a meal diary. So I included that so that you could be prepared. And that's it. So if anyone has any questions or comments, you're free to ask.
Yes, so please, Steve, if we could stop the recording or just pause the recording. So first, I'd like to introduce Alyssa Clark. Alyssa has been an occupational therapist with Cuyahoga DD for 5 years. And prior to working at Cuyahoga DD, she worked at a skilled nursing facility. And her interests include sensory processing needs and developmental trauma. Cindy Miklau is also presenting this evening. Cindy has worked for the board for nearly 26 years. 10 of those years, she worked as a behavioral curriculum intervention specialist. And prior to that, Cindy worked as a classroom teacher in our developmental centers and as a developmental specialist in the early childhood program. And last but not least, Tina Moreno is a speech language pathologist specializing in augmentative and alternative communication. She is also an assistive technology professional certified through RESNA or RESNA. She has been employed by Cuyahoga DD since 2015, and prior to joining Cuyahoga DD, she worked in a hospital, outpatient, and school settings. So take it away.
Okay, I will start our presentation today. Even though it says I'm Melissa Clark underneath my video, I am Cindy McLeod. I am a behavior curriculum intervention specialist. And I don't know if Alyssa and Tina, if you wanted to introduce yourself also.
Oh, sure. I am Alyssa Clark, occupational therapist. I'm very happy to be here.
And I'm Tina Moreno. I'm a speech language pathologist. Happy to be here too.
I think Cindy actually got kicked out. So I can get started. So we're just going to start with our talking points. What are the benefits of schedules and routines? And we are going to discuss the differences between the two, why we should be using visual supports, how can they help you and your family. We're going to do a deep dive into a bedroom routine, and then we'll also provide some resources for home. So just to get started with some definitions, a schedule is what do I need to get done today? So a schedule may change based on the day. So that could include today, I'm going to the gym, but I don't go to the gym every day. So it's just a part of my weekly schedule. Whereas a routine, those are the daily activities or habits that are repeated during a typical day. So that includes bedtime. You know, my morning routine includes waking up, I take a shower, I eat breakfast, I brush my teeth, and I get ready to go. So that is a daily activity routine. It's a habit. That's the same thing that I do every day. And it varies by the person on what order they do the same routine that another person may do. And a visual schedule, these are tools that we use to help improve our own organization, planning needs, may help with communication so that everybody is on the same page. And then it helps to improve someone's ability to understand what may be coming up in their day. So that can really help to decrease a lot of frustrations, which we will be talking about soon. So again, schedules change every day. You know, getting ready for the day tends to be the same. Routines are embedded into the schedule.
So I'm so sorry. Of course,
Okay, Cindy.
I had it plugged in, just decided to die. So I apologize for that. Thank you, Alyssa, for jumping in for me.
Sure.
Looks like we're on who benefits?
I just
you put-
started
yeah,
a slide, so take it away.
Okay, so ability and consistency, and we can all benefit from this. So obviously it can span across all abilities then. Routines give infants and toddlers a sense of security and a sense of stability. Young children gain an understanding of everyday events, procedures, learn what's expected of them. And as we grow, we use routines and schedules to help us manage our time effectively. and so that we can, be able to engage in all the demands in our lives and keep us on track to accomplish those goals. The entire family can benefit from routines because it can help us with run our lives more smoothly. Parents feel more organized, they then have a decreased amount of stress, and they can find more time to do more enjoyable things within their family. Who also benefits is daycares, schools, work, community. Any time that we can have routines embedded into any of those environments can only help keep things more predictable and consistent. The benefits of routines and schedules, there are many of them. Um, a routine and schedule can teach skills and independence. Those routines provide those predictable steps on how to follow whatever it is the expectation is. This also then creates frequent opportunities and repetition to master those skills and build confidence. The increased expected behaviors can only give children knowledge of what to do, how to do it, and know what's expected of them. Other benefits are reducing stress and anxiety, which improves our mental health. It promotes following directions. When we give those clear, specific, and familiar directives, they are more likely to follow them. We can help routines by improving their flexibility. When we add change to our routines or to our day, this can only help those who are more rigid to learn and to adapt. Skills and habits can generalize, as we said, to all these areas: school, work, community, therapies. If I am already used to following some of these routines and schedules, I will then be able to generalize them in other settings. Here's some more benefits of routines and schedules. Routines naturally help with transitions because we can then know what comes next. We can also add other visual supports to those routines. So, for example, we can use an object cue and we can show a child a diaper and let them know that we're going to next go get our diaper changed. Or we can set a visual timer like Lauren had showed on one of her slides and let children know that we're going to be participating in this activity for 5 more minutes, or the expectation of the activity is this amount of time, and that can only help support for those transitions. It promotes autonomy. Within a schedule, you can build independence. We can have choices of what sensory activity we're going to do, what exercise we're going to do within a meal. As we stated before, what meal or what foods that I would like to eat in that meal. It promotes self-regulation. So those sensory activities that we can help kids do, which can be more calming to their bodies, give them the input they need, and we can also promote some of those break times to help self-regulate. We all look forward to that will happen next that might be a little more regulating, or some downtime, or some calming, go to a calming area to help regulate our body through our very chaotic days at times. It promotes expressive and receptive communication by exposing kids to that everyday language that they hear and the repetitiveness of that language. And lastly, it promotes the understanding and establishes the expectations of what it is people are expecting me to do throughout the day. What if there is no routine or schedule? This can feel very chaotic. And when children have not had enough sleep, or their bedtime routine is lacking, or there isn't a nutritious meal, and now we have poor eating habits, or there's not enough exercise throughout the day, they're more likely to have those unexpected behaviors like a meltdown, or they're not able to handle changes in their days and have have those the difficult to change. And there is an increase with difficulty with expected behaviors. Sorry, excuse me. There's also other things that can happen when there's no routine or schedule. The schedule can increase your anxiety, like we said, your stress level, and give you that overwhelming feeling of not knowing what's happening and not knowing what's happening next. When we do not provide the structure that's needed from a routine, kids tend to test the boundaries and test the limits, and they have a difficult time transitioning. I'm always going to question what's happening next, or I may try to gain some more control if someone's not helping with those routines and schedules. I'm going to try to create one, and it may not match up with yours. When there is lack of concentration and focus because there's no routine or schedule, and those can lead to poor organization skills. No routine creates a lack of structure, so we are more likely to pick up on unhealthy habits like eating or sleeping, and then maintaining those instead of some of the healthy habits. Creating and implementing routines and schedules. There are many strategies that we can use to help implement these. For example, verbal instructions. We can use, for example, we can let them know by using a first then verbal. First, we're going to do our homework, and then you would be able to do a preferred activity. So it might be going outside to play, or it might be having a snack. We could also use verbal instructions as far as, the 2-minute reminders, 2 minutes, and then we're going to do what's next. We can do just a run through of the day. In the morning, we might be able to sit with our kids and say, today, these are these 4 things that we're going to accomplish today. We need to go to the dentist. We're going to go to the store. We're going to then get a fun snack. And at the end of the day, we're going to stop at the park. There's also gestures that we can use to help create those routines. We can point to things. We can let them know this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing next. We can also point to an area of the room. So if first we're going to sit and eat, but then I'm pointing to an area of the room that we're going to next. We can use a gesture of our fingers. So first we're going to do this. Second, we're going to do this. And third, we're going to do this. We can use gentle physical prompting to help create those routines. I may need to guide you to the next area, that the next activity or the next area that we might be going to. We might be able to, give a gentle prompt to the elbow. If they're brushing their teeth and they're not getting the back teeth, we might be able to just gently prompt them to move a little bit farther back. We try to create this as some errorless learning when we do some of the physical prompting and create those healthy habits. There are many visuals that are low tech and high tech to help create the schedules and routines. And which next I'm going to hand it over to Tina, and she is going to give some more information on that.
Right. Let me see if I can advance it. Gets a little stuck now and then. There we go. So when we create visuals, we can use no technology whatsoever, right? We can use objects in our environment. A spoon can represent a snack, for example, and rubber ducky can represent bath time. We can use photos that we take of the objects and sequence them We can use symbols or icons that we can get easily off the internet or through a program. The Lesson Picks, for example, is a website that is subscription based that lets you download images. We can write things down. We can use a planner and write things down and just make a list and refer to them, 1, 2, 3. And we can create social stories that help children kind of understand and grasp the routine. We read through it frequently, and then it just makes it a little bit easier to understand. So let's look at assistive technology. We can create visuals. We can use assistive technology to give us reminders and more. Assistive technology is so readily available. We usually have phones, for example. A lot of us have tablets. Some apps might be free or very low cost. It's just a matter of trial and error to figure out what's going to work best for your family. We can create audio recordings and then play them back as a reminder of what steps 1, 2, and 3 are. Similarly, we can create visual recordings, make videos that we can watch over and over again. And we can take videos of the children actually doing those activities so they can see themselves be successful at going through this routine. We can use Alexa or a Google device or our smartwatch to set timers and alarms to remind us like when it's time to start that bedtime routine. And sometimes that's really nice to use the technology because it deflects the responsibility. It's not mom or dad saying it's time to put down your electronics and go take a bath, right? It's Alexa. The kids can be part of that too. They can help make those videos. They can record those alarm reminders, and then it makes it a little more fun. We can use like a timer, like the time timer that we have on that slide. That's actually a physical timer, but we can also just set the timer on our microwave or on our phone. And we can use a visual timer app. Those are available, like Time Timer has one, Countdown is another one. These are free or very low cost apps that just help children visualize the passage of time because that can be very abstract and feel strange. But watching this red circle decrease over time is a good indication that time is passing. We can use other apps like this First Then app that's on the far right that lets us take symbols and photos that are already in the app and sort them in the order of a routine. A similar app is called ChoiceWorks. These apps are easily customizable. They can, the schedules or routines can be shared with other people. And so we can make these things on the fly. We don't necessarily have to go old school with paper and printing and Velcro. So it makes it very easy to use this particular assistive technology. And again, it's a matter of trial and error and figuring out what works best for your family. But we recognize that there are barriers in establishing new routines at home. Organization might not necessarily be every parent's skill set. Like maybe we can be organized using planners and electronics at work, but when we come home, it all goes out the window. And we understand that it takes time to make these changes and kind of allocate this time to implement new things at home. We know behavior may get worse before it gets better. There's a lot of research out there that says it takes 2 weeks to learn new habits or extinguish old behaviors, right? So for 2 weeks, we need to stay really consistent, use really consistent language, use the same tools, kind of stick through it because it does get better over time. But when we're expecting new things of children, sometimes there's some pushback. Excessive screen time can make it a little bit more difficult to transition into new habits. Screen time may delay that bedtime, right? If we don't want to give that iPad up, we might push back bath time really long because we just want to play a little bit longer. And so using visuals or a timer to indicate how much screen time children are allowed to have, that can be very, very helpful, helps them understand when that activity is going to come to an end. Maybe you don't feel like you have support of your spouse or other caregivers. Maybe they don't see the benefits of establishing a routine. Making small changes at a time is sometimes easier than going to your family and saying, all right, we're throwing everything out the window and we're starting this new routine. We suggest making these changes in small chunks so that you get more buy-in from everybody. And we know that families might have limited resources. Some of the things that we've talked about regarding assistive technology might not be available to everybody. But we encourage you to explore what you have, whether it's a whiteboard or a piece of paper or a planner. Try to use what you have and then and see if that works for you. Other barriers just include just plain old fatigue and exhaustion at the end of the day, right? We get it for sure. So again, we recommend making one small change at a time rather than trying to do too much. Pick one routine you want to build up, whether it's getting ready for bedtime or getting ready for school, and start small and then build from there. Not everyone is going to be motivated to make this change. It sometimes takes a little bit of time to get everybody on board. And because it takes a little time to see the results, maybe we get stuck every once in a while. We could get resistance from the child who doesn't like that the expectations have changed, doesn't like that we're turning off that screen a little bit earlier, or it just feels uncomfortable initially. And the same thing with other caregivers and spouses. For some, it could be difficult prioritizing the routines that you want to work on. It could be difficult prioritizing whether or not to start with a bedtime routine or to start with a getting ready for school routine, right? And of course, there's always procrastination. We all put things off. We tend to put off, especially the things that are hard. And so we might have, again, more luck if we start small. Don't make it feel so big and so hard, and make little changes at a time. All right. Let me go to my notes. So schedule changes. We really, really recommend building routines into our days, because building that routine, it might sound counterintuitive, but building those routines actually make it easier to help children understand when there is a schedule change, like best laid plans. We know exactly what we're going to do, but then the play date was canceled, or there's a snow day tomorrow. And so you have to find this balance between planning ahead and having a backup plan, and helping communicate that change to a child, and knowing that sometimes children perseverate. They get really anxious when they know something different is coming up. So we know that can vary by family. We recommend giving children choices. So if something changed and the play date was canceled, give your child a choice what they might do. Could we have a family movie night? Could we play in the sprinkler? Could we go to the zoo instead? And let them have some of that control over the situation when it feels like they've gone out of control because something has changed. We can help children understand the change by creating a visual by going to a website and looking at some of those options. So it makes it just a little more concrete. And then we suggest using really consistent language when there is a change, just matter of factly. Changes happen. There's a new plan, and kind of using that mantra every time when there is a schedule change, so that the child understands that it's just matter of fact. It's not a tragedy. Your calm will be observed by the child, and they'll feel calmer as well. So there are lots of amazing ways to create your own visuals. Again, we can keep it really simple and use object cues, just everyday objects to indicate the components of your routine. Brush means it's time to brush your teeth. Diaper means it's time to use the toilet or change a pull-up. Shoes means it's time to put your shoes on and go out the door. We can use paper and pencil and whiteboards and planners and calendars. We can use just everyday technology like PowerPoint and Word to create visuals to help us understand our routines. We can get super fancy and Google images, for example, or use images that are built into PowerPoint and Word. We can use a website called Lesson Picks that's a subscription-based website. It's $35, I think, a year, and you could download all the images that you need. Just put your search into the field and it'll give you a lot of images you can use. You can create a book that helps children understand the new routines using Book Creator, which is a free app available on tablets. Pictello is another app that's available on tablets to create books. There are some really wonderful apps that let you just create visuals on the fly, visual schedules, like the First Then app and the ChoiceWorks app. They have built-in symbols and photos, and you can use your own as well from your tablet. And then, of course, we have timers and timer apps that we can use to create these visuals that help children understand and kind of go along with these new routines that we're trying to establish at home. So these are just examples of some other visuals. We're gonna have Alyssa kind of pick up our presentation, and at the end, we just thought we would run through some of the handouts that we created that includes ready-made symbols that you can just print and utilize right away. And I think that that'll make it really helpful for you to implement any type of routines that you want to get started with.
Okay, so now we're going to do more of a deep dive into what may make a successful bedtime routine for both the child and the family. So, an optimal bedroom routine includes consistency. You want to be fairly consistent between the week and the weekend, especially maybe a child that needs more assistance understanding time and different days. It may be easier on them and you just to kind of follow the same sort of routine. You may not need to wake up as early on a weekend as a weekday, but it would help if maybe they didn't sleep in all day on one day and then didn't know why they had to wake up early for school the next day. Good oral hygiene, brushing teeth and flossing, maybe using mouthwash. These bedtime routines set up a child for success in their future for better dental health as they age. Avoiding drinks and snacks before bedtime, limiting television and electronic use, as Tina had mentioned. They have also recommended to minimize the screen time about 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. That just helps their brain calm down, especially if you can work on that transition away from screen time, then they're hopefully not going to be upset when it's ready for bed because they haven't had their screen up until then. bathing and showering can help relax your body and calm your body and give you a good connection with your child and caregiver. And then reading books and relaxing. So additionally, it's important that how long you sleep and the quality of sleep follows age-appropriate guidelines. So infants need the greatest amount of sleep, and it gradually decreases as you age. In preschool, a child needs 10 to 13 hours per sleep per 24 hours, and that includes naps. School age, they need 9 to 12 hours per 24-hour period, including naps. And teenagers still need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, which is pretty significant because adults, we only need, about 7 to 8 hours. So, if you're noticing that your teenager is sleeping in longer, then you're correct, and they do need that sleep. So for research on bedtime routines, children with non-regular bedtime routines, so say tonight they go to sleep at 8 p.m., but tomorrow it's 9:15 and it's never really the same, they display more often behavioral challenges. So parents that provide optimal bedtime routines, as we just said, report lower levels of anxiety, anger, and fatigue. So improving your child's bedtime routine will also help yourself as the caregiver, parent, or guardian, so that you can be more calm and regulated, so that you can help the child go through this routine and help co-regulate them. So additional things that can help with sleep is going through some sensory or movement activities, especially throughout the day. Oops, did I do that? No. Okay, thank you. So movement activities can help improve sleep. You can incorporate routines for activity throughout the day, and then some calming activities before bed. This can include a white noise machine or calming music. Maybe they like classical music. Using essential oils like lavender has been shown for calming effects. Dimming the lights or using a starry night projector. Gentle rocking with the caregiver or using a rocking chair. A massage or applying lotion, that also helps with that caregiver connection. Some items, sensory equipment specifically, that could help sleep is a weighted blanket or just using a heavy comforter. There's something called a compression sheet or a snuggle sheet that wraps around the mattress, and it's very tight of a stretchy material. That can be really comforting to a person who may need more defined space within the bed, and that it's really tight against their bodies, so that can be calming. Another thing to help define their space is a little tent over their bed. That can help it so that maybe the room doesn't feel so big and overwhelming. It kind of narrows the space of the room. Does your child have a favorite stuffed animal or favorite teddy bear, favorite blanket? We want to make sure that they have those available to them. Weighted animals may help kind of along the weighted blanket thread. Weight can be calming. Vibration can also help to calm a person and give some of that deep pressure input that Lauren was talking about in the previous presentation. So all of these items can help prepare a child for bed, feel calm, help the caregiver feel calm too. So following a consistent bedtime routine demonstrated improved health and well-being for children. They showed improved executive functioning skills, which executive functioning includes working memory, inhibition, which is about controlling your attention and your behavior and your thoughts so that you don't get pulled into multiple directions, just being able to control your attention, and your cognitive flexibility. So how flexible are you with change? Working memory can affect a child if you are giving them a direction or instructions. So, you can say, first we're going to brush your teeth, then we're going to put pajamas on. So if a child is having a hard time with executive functioning and working memory, they may not remember the first step that you gave them. So it's really important to get good quality sleep so that they are able to have these executive functioning skills. So consistent bedtime routines also have school readiness benefits. So children scored higher in school readiness, being prepared for school, prepared for reading. They also showed better dental health, as including oral hygiene in their bedtime routine. And then the researchers found that the parents that utilized and implemented these optimal bedtime routines generally used a more positive parenting style. So that parenting style is called authoritative. So parents are more nurturing, they explain the rules, they have boundaries, but there's a lot of choice allowed within those boundaries. So think about your own bedroom routine, bedtime routine. What are the steps that you do and the steps that you take? It may be helpful to use a visual for this. So, first you have icons or objects of a toothbrush, pajamas, the rubber ducky, and then the bed. So that could help a child be prepared for bed. Use concrete language and then follow through consistently. You could also set timers and alarms, calendar events, so that I know my child takes 45 minutes from start of this routine to hitting the head on the pillow. So I need to start at a certain time so that I can keep this routine consistent for them and for me. So here's an example of a visual that has, no electronics, bath, pajamas, brush teeth, read a book, and then turn off the lights. So again, with the consistent language, you say it's time to get ready for bed. Let's look at our schedule. We start with a bath. So you want to be simple, matter of fact. Try not to ask questions like, are you ready for bed? Are you ready to get your PJs on? Because most likely your child's going to say no. And then what do you do? And then you're kind of in this power struggle, in this battle with them to try to get them pulled away from their fun activity in order to go to bed, which isn't always as fun. So be sure to add in choices within you can. So maybe 1 or 2 choices of what do you want to wear to bed? Do you want to wear your Paw Patrol pajamas or your Mickey Mouse pajamas? And then let the kids weigh in on the order of sequence. Maybe they would rather brush their teeth before they wear their pajamas, and that's totally fine. And then staying with consistency. These will all help you and your child feel better as you go through the bedtime routine. I don't know why it's not letting me click now. Tina, do you want to?
Yep. There we go. All right, so we wanted to kind of go through some of the handouts that we're sharing with you because we think they're pretty robust with a lot of resources that'll let you implement some of these things at home. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that I can then open another document. It looks like this. All right, so these are the handouts that we're sharing that'll be sent to participants later on. We included 25 reasons to use visual strategies. I'm going to scroll down here. We included this visual supports checklist that helps you kind of identify the items or the routines that you need to include in the visual schedules that you're going to make. It lists routines, for example. It lists, I'm going to slow down because it's having a hard time staying with me, places that you might go, and you can just complete this visual checklist, just help plan how you're going to implement things. I don't think I'm giving it enough time to come up. Let's see if it loads. No, I'm so sad. Well, you're not seeing anything, right? It's not just me. Okay, here's some more. Okay. So we've got icons for calming activities. I'm just gonna go a little further, may give it a little more time. I think I'm just being impatient. Yes, I'm definitely being impatient. Icons
A
for
lot in there. So
yeah, there is. I think the file is so big. Just lots and lots of symbols that represent all the kinds of things that you do all day. I think I'm gonna give up.
Just use your imagination.
Use your imagination. Like, I mean, there's playtime symbols and there's mealtime symbols and there's getting dressed and playing a game and going outside. But I think that it's probably all there so that you can create visual schedules of your own.
Tina, do you want to put back on our PowerPoint just in case people want our contact information?
Sure, I can do that. Let me go to that slide. Here we are. One more. There we go. So I think we just want to thank you for joining us today. And we've included our contact information, our emails, and I think that we would all welcome any of our participants to reach out to us with any questions that they have, if they just want to ask those questions offline later on. We've included our references here as well, if you want to do a dive into those. And then I think we've got some time for questions.
Yes, so Tina, Alyssa, and Cindy, thank you so much